The African Growth Opportunity Act is an incredible piece of legislation. It is one that African entrepreneurs and African companies should be taking advantage of, because it's one that can pretty much just, if used properly, which we'll discuss in this video, discuss in this webinar, it can pretty much change the lives of many individuals who are in Africa, because they now can export to the largest economy in the world, to America, the United States. So we're going to talk about this, and I want you all to learn as much as you can. And so I guess to start, my name is Jeremy Johnson. I am a U.S. lawyer practicing primarily international trade law. I counsel with numerous entrepreneurs in Africa, lawyers and law firms, and I began my career at the City of Philadelphia District Attorney's Office. So without further ado, let's get to the presentation. Ladies and gentlemen, what we're talking about is the African Growth Opportunity Act. This is an incredible piece of legislation. It primarily is the key trade legislation between the U.S. and many other countries in the continent of Africa. We're going to talk about that because this is absolutely an incredible opportunity. So what we're going to talk about, we're going to fully explain the African Growth Opportunity Act. This is very important to understand. We're going to really break down exactly what it is and the benefits and how African entrepreneurs can take advantage of this. We're going to talk about some of the top products to export to the U.S. Africa is blessed in many respects, has many things that can be exported to the U.S. And we're going to talk about some of those things that African entrepreneurs and African companies can take advantage of. We're also going to talk about some of the contractual and legal implications. When you're dealing with international trade, it's a multi-trillion-dollar industry. And you have something of that magnitude is going to have contracts and legal implications. The African Growth Opportunity Act is a legal implication. It is a law. It's an act. So that has legal implications in and of itself. We're also going to talk about how to market your products in the U.S. The American buyer is a very sophisticated buyer. And we're going to talk about different ways that entrepreneurs, African entrepreneurs, can market their products in the U.S. And we're also going to talk about some funding opportunities. What are some things that entrepreneurs can use to take their business to the next level and even begin? We're going to talk about businesses for small businesses as well as for some larger businesses, because they both have different needs and different challenges. So that's very important. So let's begin with the size of the American economy. I mentioned earlier, America is the largest economy in the world. If we look at this map, we look at this is the global economy, roughly $74 trillion. This is the United States. It represents roughly 24% of the world's GDP, the global economy. It's the largest economy in the world. This is China at roughly 14%. This is most of the nations in Europe. We have some African nations, South Africa, we have Egypt, Nigeria, a couple of countries in South Africa, and the rest of the world falls in here. So that's why I really want to do this webinar, because this is the African Growth Opportunity Act. It allows African products to be exported to the largest economy in the world. And that cannot be understated. That cannot be understated, because this represents something this is the opportunity. It's really an opportunity that African entrepreneurs should be taking advantage of, should be learning more about, and should be taking advantage of. And I'm confident we can take advantage of this. As of right now, the African Growth Opportunity Act is not being utilized by many African entrepreneurs. It's not being utilized, and it's set to expire in 2025. And we don't know if they're going to extend this, because it's not being utilized to the extent that it needs to be. Let's take a deeper dive into the American economy. All states in America, 50 states, and all states are not equal when it comes to economic power. For example, you look at California, it's over $2 trillion in one state. You see New York is over $1 trillion in one state. Georgia, 461 billion. Ohio, 500 billion. Texas, over $1 trillion. So I say all this to say is that when you're thinking about exporting products to the US, you can then begin to target different buyers, distributors in these relative states, because every state isn't necessarily equal from an economic standpoint. But even the smaller ones, as far as like South Dakota, they're doing 42 billion. That's still a decent market. It's not $1 trillion compared to New York or California, but it's still relatively $42 billion. So this is the economic engine, the power that of America is. And by being in Africa, you are situated very well to take advantage of this economy through the African Growth Opportunity Act. Let's talk about the growth of America. We saw this is 2020, the global pandemic. The whole world was hurting, and America was hurting included. And America was hurting just as much as everyone else was. But 2021 through 2025, American economy is expected to grow. This is good for African entrepreneurs, African companies. This is very good. And this is important because it goes all the way through 2025, which is when the goal is set to expire. So this is good. This is really good. So let's talk about the African Growth Opportunity Act. We briefly discussed the size of the American economy. Let's talk about the African Growth Opportunity Act. What exactly is that? What benefits does it give to individuals that are in Africa? First, it was created by President Clinton. Then it was extended by President Bush, and then President Obama extended it in 2015 up to 10 more years to 2025. So it has bipartisan support. This isn't something that the Democrats are focusing on or Republicans focus on. This is something that everyone wants. Everyone in America came together and created this act to allow African entrepreneurs to export products to the US. This is something we have to take advantage of. This is the opportunity, and we have to take advantage of it. And unfortunately, as of right now, it's not being utilized to the extent that it needs to be used. And the most important part, this is very important, it gives African products duty-free access to the US for thousands of products. That duty-free access is very important. Let's think of an example. Let's say, for example, you are a clothing manufacturer. You are creating clothing, and you selling, for example, America has many seasons, 4 seasons. You're selling sweaters. Right now in the United States, it's wintertime. So you're selling sweaters to the US. You get an order from maybe like the Gap or Old Navy or one of the big retailers in America, and they ask for $1 million worth of sweaters. You export $1 million worth of sweaters to the United States. Normally, you have to pay a duty tax, an import tax to the American government, normally. But with the African Growth Opportunity Act, you don't have to pay that. So say, for example, is a 3% duty tax on that $1 million. That's roughly $30,000 that no longer has to be paid. And if they're doing that every single month, that's $30,000 into savings that they don't have to pass on to their customer, and that their products can be cheaper. So this is very important to understand. So by taking advantage of AGOA, African entrepreneurs now have products that'll be cheaper in American markets, that can be cheaper and can be just as competitive, if not even more competitive, than products from anywhere else in the world coming to America. This is very important. The products that can be shipped to America through AGOA can be competitive, if not cheaper, than many products in anywhere else in the world. And that's just a 3%. If it's a 5% duty tax rate, they can go up to, they can be 10%. They can be higher than 10% duty tax rate. So you're saving hundreds of thousands of dollars and making your products cheaper. So there's a demand for these products coming from Africa. And then when you combine this with the general system of preferences, you now have duty-free treatment as well. And this isn't just with Africa. This is with over 119 developing nations around the world. So African nations can take advantage of the general system of preferences, as well as they can take advantage of AGOA. So they have combined over 6,000 products, over at least 6,500 products that can be exported to America. This is very important to understand about AGOA. The rule of origin: 35% of the value of the product must originate in the African nation. Only 35%. This is very generous. This is very generous. Versus you look at, you see here, the United States has a free trade agreement with U.S., Mexico, and Canada. And when it comes to cars and automobiles, 75% must originate in one of those countries. 75%. That's a very high threshold to meet. But with the AGOA, only 35% of the value of the product must originate from an African nation. So that means African entrepreneurs can bring in products from China, from India, from anywhere in the world, and put it together, add to whatever they're going to add to it, and only 35% of it has to meet it in order to get to America duty-free. This is an incredible opportunity. This is an absolutely incredible opportunity. And we're going to talk about how the ways you can ensure that you meet that 35% threshold. And as I mentioned earlier, AGOA allows African entrepreneurs to export to the US, the world's largest economy, where English is the primary language. So this is a benefit because the world's largest economy only speaks primarily one language, and that's English. You look at Africa, there's many languages spoken in Africa. Europe, many languages spoken in Europe. Asia, many languages. But with America, the largest economy in the world, there's only one language spoken. So that's good for a business perspective, because when you're designing products, the packaging for your products, you only have to worry about English. When you're dealing with buyers in America, you only have to worry about English. That's an enormous benefit. The largest economy only speaks one language. That's an incredible benefit. So let's go through some of the qualifications of AGOA that you have to meet. The country of export must be AGOA eligible. I'm going to show you all the countries in Africa that are eligible for AGOA, for the African Growth Opportunity Act. The product must be AGOA eligible. There's at least 65 products that can be exported to America. Is the product you're trying to export, is that one of those products? The product must be imported directly into the US from the African nation. You can't export it from Africa to China, then from China to America. It won't work that way. It has to be exported directly from the African nation into the US. And then the rule of origin must be met. We talked about 35%, and we're going to talk about that a little bit more. So these are all the nations in Africa that are eligible for AGOA. Most of them, 39 eligible nations. There's Ghana, there's Cote d'Ivoire, Gambia, Senegal, South Africa. I mean, there's many of them. There's Kenya, Tanzania. I mean, there's many nations. Congo, there's many nations. Ethiopia, there's many nations that are eligible for AGOA. So you all are in a key position. And this is a stamp for AGOA. This is a sample stamp. This is a sample stamp from Togo. For example, when you're exporting products to the US, when it comes to the customs reach US shores, they're going to be looking for the AGOA visa stamp. And this is a sample one how it may look from AGOA. So I just want you all to be familiar with how it may look. I'm gonna have all these, I'll send these slides to you all, so you don't necessarily have to worry about writing anything down. This is also a sample commercial invoice. This comes from the West African Trade Hub. We're gonna talk about these trade hubs later on, but this is a sample one. The seller, the terms of payment, many things such as that. We're gonna talk more about this and how you can take this into a full-blown sales contract. This is a certificate of origin form for AGOA. This is from the government. This was revised in 2008. This is where you have the name, your exporter's name, your importer's name, description of the product. Also has legal significance. You have to sign it, and it shows that you're not putting in false information, and many things such as that. But this is how it will look, because when you're exporting through AGOA, you have to be able to prove or show as strong as possible that this actually comes from an African nation. And these are some of the forms to do that. So I have a worksheet right here. I'm going to send this worksheet out to everyone. But when you're thinking about exporting products to the US, let's choose 3 products to export. What are 3 products you can think about? I feel like I can confidently export to America. Africa is blessed. We all know the resources that Africa has. We all know the products that can be exported to America from Africa. Think of some of the things that you all can do. We're going to talk about some of that in the next couple of slides. Think of 3 industries you want to focus on. These are just ideas to get the creative juices flowing. Also, some key metrics to understand. You don't have to write this down. I'm going to send this form to you. Do you have an export plan? We're going to talk about how to be export ready, because you may want to take advantage of this opportunity, but are you ready to take advantage of the opportunity? Have you drafted this? Do you have a sales contract or a commercial invoice? Also, does your product require an export license? That's important, because when you're exporting things, your country may require an export license. That's common across many places in the world. It's same in America. Certain products have to require an export license. You can't just export anything from America. Certain products may require an export license. Your country may be one of those as well. So these are things that keep thinking about. Think about the product I want to export require an export license? So let's talk about, so we talked about the size of America. The American economy is huge. We fully understand the opportunities and the requirements of the African Growth Opportunity Act because it has its requirements. Let's talk about some of the top products to export in AGOA. The first one is clothing, apparel. This is very, very important. If you know someone that can make clothes or know how to create clothes, this would be a good opportunity to take advantage of. And why do I say that? Because of the third country fabric rule. Third country fabric rule. This is very important. The third country fabric rule allows African entrepreneurs, African companies to bring in yarn and fabric from another country. You can import fabric from China, from India, or wherever you want to get it from, and you can create a finished product in your country. This is not how it normally works. Normally, when you're dealing with clothes, the fabric has to be created in the actual country that it's exporting from. But through the African Growth Opportunity Act, the fabric and the yarn does not even have to be created in that country. It can be imported, and it can be turned into sweaters or hats or shoes or pants or whatever type of clothing or apparel that you can think of, and you can export it to to a U.S. company, U.S. clothing distributor, to a big retailer, Macy's. They bring in products from all over the world, big brands, Sean John, or some of the biggest brands in America. These can be your customers. We're going to talk about how to find buyers very shortly, but apparel is definitely one of those. Food is another one. America is very healthy. Not all of America is healthy, but there's a significant population of America that is healthy. Moringa, hibiscus, coconuts. There's coconuts everywhere. I'm in Ghana right now and I see coconuts everywhere. And also there's gluten-free things. America is very healthy and they're focusing more on gluten-free things. Cassava is gluten-free. You can turn these into cassava chips, cassava powder. These things are very healthy and they would be welcome in America. And these things that individuals in Africa can grow. They're being grown in Africa right now. Fruits and nuts. You see shea. They have these global alliances, the shea global alliances, the mango global alliances. They have these things already active in Africa. So countries have gotten together and say, okay, right, for example, right now is mango season in Ghana, from what I'm told. But once the mango season ends in Ghana, big companies will still be able to get mangoes because it'll be mango season in another country somewhere in Africa. So the countries have gotten together and it's created a global alliance in mangoes, shea, and cashews. But these are just 3 of the products. They can also be done in many other products as well. Come on, Steven. Also, we have oil. Oil has been a large user of AGOA. They've been a large user of AGOA. They've really taken advantage of the African Growth Opportunity Act, but they can be others. Fish and seafood. America loves seafood. And in Africa, waters are abundant in seafood, fish, seafood, salmon, crab, shrimp. It's not uncommon to go to a grocery store and see shrimp from Thailand in America. It's not uncommon. Not uncommon to see seafood from Asia. These things can also come from Africa. It's also important to add value to your products. How can we add value to the products that we have? Because it's one thing to export a mango to the United States, but we can also maybe do some cassava chips. We can also, with cocoa, it's one thing we can export the cocoa paste or the cocoa and raw material, but we can also use the husk to turn into fertilizer. You can use cocoa for fertilizer, and the fertilizer industry is huge in America. There's iron ore, but you can also turn that into potentially some steel. You can create steel. It's important to us. This not to just think about the raw material. Let's think about adding value, a finished product. Because once we have a finished product, that can then be shown to individuals and they can see it better. Versus them doing all the work, you can add a value and create a market and be able to create jobs in Africa. And this is what the African Growth Opportunity Act is all about. It's about allowing African entrepreneurs to see the advantages that they have. I mean, these things right here, Africa's blessed. I mean, we haven't even gotten to the other minerals, but these things are growing all over the continent. So let's talk about that. And as I mentioned, there's over 6,500 products that can be exported to the US. This is very important to understand. This is a lot of products, not 1,000, not 3,000, not 5,000, but 6,500 products that can be exported to the US. But it's important to do your market research. This is a really good website. This will be, I'm gonna send these slides out to everyone, so you don't necessarily have to write this down, but this is a great website to do market research on, because it allows, it gives you information on imports into the US from over 200 countries, and those countries and African nations are included into those statistics. Also, we have the regional trade hubs, AGOA trade hubs. They're regional trade hubs. They have a West African Trade and Investment Hub, East Africa, Southern Africa, where you can go to these trade hubs and say, what are the products that's best to be exported to the American economy? These are places right in Africa that you can go to. So this is how you do your market research, because you have the ideas of your product, but are these products likely to be sold into America? They may have some information, but research and development is also important as well. You can develop products. I'll send these out to everyone in the slide, so we don't necessarily have to write these down. So where to find buyers? This is very important. If you have a product you want to export, how do you find a person in America to buy it? Because you don't have a buyer in place, you can't really do business. You don't necessarily have the money coming in, which means you can't create jobs and hire people and grow. So where to find buyers? The first place is a trade show. We talk about clothing. The Magic Trade Show is probably the best trade show in America. If you're dealing with clothing, all the big three retailers are going to be there. All of the name brand clothing designers are going to be there. This has been, the Magic Trade Show has been probably the #1 trade show in America for a very long time. So these are some things you can go to. The Fancy Food Show. You're dealing with food items. These are some things you can do. You create a finished product and you can go and show this at these trade shows. These are some of the examples of it. And there's also some specialty events. One of them is Culture Fest. I mean, these are just examples. These are just examples. But if you're dealing with clothing, you need to be at the Magic Trade Show. But there are Culture Fest. If you can meet many of the culture requirements, which can be very strict in some ways, you can have some buyers for a very long time. Also conferences. They have an AGOA conference every year. They didn't have it last year, I don't believe, but there's an AGOA conference every year. Some years is in Africa, then the next year is in America. That's another good way to meet people. Also, lawyers and accountants with AGOA expertise. When you're dealing with individuals in international trade, particularly with the AGOA, because it can be sophisticated in some areas, you want to deal with a lawyer or someone who has expertise in that, because they have connection with buyers, as well as they have connection with individuals who are trying to export. Digital marketing. We're going to talk about digital marketing very shortly, but digital marketing, in my opinion, may be the hands down the most powerful form of marketing that has ever existed. It may be the most powerful form of marketing in the history of marketing. We're going to talk about that and why I say that. But you can also digital market and market to people to find buyers. And also you can have some internet stores as well. If you're dealing with like different jewelry or different things like that, you can create your Etsy store. And that may be beneficial, and you can take advantage of that. Also Alibaba, there are American companies on Alibaba. There's companies in Africa on Alibaba. These are some of the ideas that you can take. These are 5 ideas that if you go through these paths, you'll definitely find some buyers. So let's talk about digital marketing. As I mentioned, digital marketing is the most powerful form of marketing. And I really think we need to really understand just the importance of digital marketing in the 21st century, in the 2021. Digital marketing, it allows you, let's take Facebook, for example. Normally, if a person has a product to sell, they'll post it on their Facebook page so their friends and family can see it. Or normally they'll create a Facebook group and post it. And maybe some people may see it, some people may not see it. But we need to understand the idea of advertising, because we're in business. Advertising exists for a reason. We need to create an ad manager account on business.facebook.com. Not facebook.com, but business.facebook.com. Most people log into facebook.com, but there's a business.facebook.com where you can go there and create your ad account. This is very important to understand. This is just with Facebook, but Google has the same thing. They all have it, but this is with Facebook. And the reason I say that is because most people in the world have a Facebook account. Your buyers, there's a very high chance that your buyer has a Facebook account. I'm willing to say most people on this webinar have Facebook accounts. Everyone in the world have a Facebook account. And by using Facebook's ad manager, you can reach your buyers from anywhere else in the world. From anywhere else in the world. You can find buyers from anywhere else in the world. And that's important to understand. So once you have it, you'll create an ad on Facebook. You create your ad on Facebook, and then you'll be targeting your products, and then they'll click on that ad, and then they'll go to your website. In the year 2021, let's try to get a website. Most people need a website to tell their story, tell who they are. And you can have a website telling your products. So you have an ad running on Facebook, and they'll click on that ad, and then they'll go to your landing page, your website. And then from there, you'll collect their information. And those information, you can have request a free sample of my product. So they put their information in, the names, the addresses, the phone numbers, the location, the company name, and then you can send them a sample of your product. Now you can pay for shipping or they can pay for shipping. It's however you want to go about it from a business perspective. But it's very important to know that this is how you can find buyers. Let's say, for example, you are into, you can target by location. You can target America. You want to get in there. Let's say, for example, you are in Nigeria, for example, and you want to find buyers in America. And through business, Facebook.com, you can target the country of America. So only people in America will see your advertisement. And then you can get very detailed targeted, very targeted. You can say only people who work for Kohl's, the only people that work for Sean John, only people that work for only people that hold on one second. Hold on. Only people that work for certain different companies can see your ad. Only people that are interested in coconut can see this ad. People that you can get very detailed targeted. So not everyone in America will see your ad, but only people that are interested in your products can see your ad. You can target through those words, those target words. And then they can either request samples or they can make an order. And then the orders are made. We talked about the different magic shows. We talked about the different shows you can go to. You can come to America. But through digital marketing, you don't even have to come to America. You don't have to come to America. And we can talk about ways to minimize your risk and things such as that. We're going to talk about that later on. But you don't even have to come to America. Digital marketing, hands down, is the most powerful marketing that has ever existed, in my opinion. Because you can put a billboard, but if no one's on the street to see the billboard, then you can't market to them. But through Facebook, you can market anywhere in the world. And then this is also important. This is very important to understand. If a person comes to your website, but they don't necessarily buy from you, you can retarget ads to them. This is critical to understand. It's very critical to understand. Facebook has what they call a pixel. Let's write this down. P-I-X-E-L. P-I-X-E-L. A pixel. Because you can put a pixel on your website and Facebook will know who came to your website. And then you can send ads to people that came to your website the last 30 days, last 15 days, however long you want to get this person reminded of who you are. And it typically take a person a couple of times to see your ad before they buy. So this is the process. You create an ad, they go to your landing page, you collect information, you can send them samples or orders. And if they don't buy, you can retarget them. But it's very important to know this because now you have the samples. Now you have the orders in place. You have the information. So if you create a new product, you have your customers' information already. You can mail them your new product and say, hey, we created a new product. Are you interested in this? Or we're exporting this item. Are you interested in this as well? Here's a free sample of our product. And they can request orders from that as well. This is very critical to understand. And I want to teach you all the real steps. If you follow this method, you're going to find buyers. These are 5 different paths you can take. You're going to find buyers. But before you export, we have to understand, are you export ready? If you get an order from Walmart, Walmart wants 100,000 or 1 million coconuts or whatever product you're trying to export. They want 1 million of those every single month. Could you meet that order? You have to be export ready. We're going to talk about that. One way is to have an export plan. I have a checklist for an export plan. Does your company actually exist? Does it really exist? Could I go to your country and go to the registrar's office and find your company on paper? Because you're dealing with a buyer in America, they're not necessarily going to want to deal with a person. They want to deal with a company. And that's very important to understand because the opportunity is so immense. It's so immense. And also a company, for example, Africa may call it a private limited company. It minimizes your risk because if something bad happens, they can't sue you personally. They can only sue your company. They can only sue your company, not you personally. So that's very important to understand. Also, packaging. Is your packaging beautiful? Your packaging has to be beautiful. I'm gonna show you some ideas for packaging, but does it have the calories, the necessary warnings on your packaging? These are very important. These are the things that make you export ready. I'm ready to export. Also, the quality standards. The American, as I mentioned, the economy of America is enormous. And so with that, the opportunity, the benefits, the life-changing benefits in many ways, the standards of American consumer is very high because they get products from all over the world. And also the U.S. FDA, we're going to talk about FDA very shortly, but the U.S. FDA, are you registered with the U.S. FDA? U.S. FDA. These are the quality. And I mentioned, can you meet the quantity standards? They want $1 million worth of products, $1 million worth of this item. Can you meet that? Can you actually meet that? And as I mentioned earlier, do you have the necessary export license? Your product may not need an export license, but it might need an export license. So let's talk about the U.S. FDA. The U.S. FDA is definitely one of the most powerful entities in international trade. Why do I say that? Because as I mentioned, America is the largest economy in the world. So by de facto, this makes this the most powerful, one of the most. And most of the things that may be getting exported from Africa may go through the U.S., the FDA. Food. This is from 2020. 33% of the thing they dealt with, 31% of the thing they dealt with came from food. So if Africa is blessed, they have a tropical climate, fertile soil, those things that come from Africa. And so you may be running into contact with the U.S. FDA. Cosmetics. We talked about shea earlier. Coconut. You can turn coconut oils, shea butter. Those things are big markets in the United States. Americans were definitely one of the top importers of shea butter. And shea butter only comes from Africa. So cosmetics products, you'll be dealing with the FDA. And many things like tobacco. I mean, the Cameroon, they're well renowned for their tobacco leaf when it comes to cigars. So that's an export opportunity. So they'll be dealing with the FDA. Oh, let's go back. Okay. All right. So these are some ideas of how your products can look. Like I mentioned, you can export the raw form. But let's start thinking a little higher. Let's create some finished products. What they call value add. Can you get a product to have your packaging to look like this? I think we can. I think we can do this. I'm confident we can do this. And with that, you create natural soaps out of coconut, shea, cocoa, mango. You can create soaps, shampoos, conditioners, beer oil, beer balm, lotions, oils, everything. You can create out of these things, grow and plentiful in Africa. But we have to make it beautiful. Also, when you're dealing with food, for example, cassava chip, banana chips, coconut chip, dried fruit, can they fit? Can you create a product that fits that on the shelf and it doesn't stand out? It blends in just as beautiful as everything else. I think we can do this. Also frozen, this is in a grocery store in America. The average grocery store in America would look like this. The frozen food aisle. There's frozen fish right here. Instead of sending fish to America, let's create fish sticks. We can add value to these things. Frozen fish, you see frozen vegetables. It's not uncommon for these vegetables to come from Asia. Why can't these come from Africa? Africa has some of the most fertile land in the world. The numbers are saying that Africa has the largest arable land there's enough to be able to feed the world. That's enough land, the fertile land, the soil that exists in Africa. The fruit, fresh fruit, frozen fish, frozen seafood. We see the seafood things such from here. Can you create products and packages that look like this? I think we can do this. I'm confident we can do this, and as well as desserts. But as I mentioned, are you export ready? Because the FDA, we're talking about the FDA now, which is one of the largest regulatory bodies in America. Because especially dealing with food, according to the Food Safety Modernization Act, this is the law. It requires facilities to register with the FDA if they manufacture, process, package, or hold food for consumption in the US. So no matter where you are, no matter where you are in the world, you have to register with the FDA. And I think we can do this. Why do I say I think we can do this? Because if we don't, they may come and inspect our facility. And they can potentially shut your facility down. For example, let's say, for example, you're a country and the FDA wants to inspect you. The FDA inspects facilities all over the world. They'll fly to your country and they'll get your local equivalent. I know Ghana has the FDA, Ghana calls it FDA, but different countries may call it something else. And they'll get them and they'll go to your facility and then investigate your facility. And they can shut it down. And then you also can get an investigation from your local FDA equivalent to inspect you and to give you fines and sanctions and things such as that. And the reason I know we can do this is because there are people in Africa already, the facilities already in Africa that's registered with the FDA. This is roughly 13 countries. All of these countries are represented on this webinar right now. So if you're in Ghana, there are 118 facilities right now that's registered with the US FDA. Nigeria is 305. South Africa is 891 facilities right now registered with the FDA. This is the last information I could find updated was January 2021. So this is the most updated information. 216 in Kenya. Botswana, there's even a facility in Botswana that's registered with the US FDA. So if they can do it, I'm confident you can do it. And there may be some individuals already who have facilities on this call that are registered with the FDA. So the idea is that when you're thinking about exporting to the US, there are people in your country already doing this. We're gonna talk about how to build a team, but these are people that are already doing it. You can begin to ask them, how did you do this? What's the process to do this? How did you become export ready? I mean, there's hundreds of people. The Gambia, Botswana, Senegal has 31. Sierra Leone has 20 people that are actively registered right now in 2021 to export to the US. Tanzania has 73, Liberia has 12. So when you're export ready, when you become an export ready, you have to have an export plan. This is a form. I'm going to send this form out to everyone. So you don't necessarily have to worry about writing this down, but I'm going to send this out to everyone. But some of the things to understand is, as I mentioned earlier, does my company actually exist? Do you meet the certificate of origin requirements? Does your product require an export license? Have you protected your brand and intellectual property? This is very important because ideally you have a company name, your company have a logo. Is that protected in the US? Can someone in the US just copy your brand, and start selling your product or whatever you're selling, export to the United States? Can they start copying that and harming your company? It's important to have intellectual property copyrighted or trademarked in the US. These are the things that lawyers can help with. I can help you with these things. Sales contract, you have a sales contract in place. Have you identified a freight forwarder and a customs broker? These are the real things to become export ready. We talked about the size of the American economy. We talked about that already. We talked about how we fully explained AGOA, the benefits AGOA provides to African entrepreneurs. We talked about the top products, the best products, some of the best products to export to America. Have you done a necessary market analysis? I gave you some links earlier so you can go do market research on products being imported into the US. Are you capable of producing the required quantities? And have you spoken with your regional trade and investment hub? These people are here for you. They're regional hubs in West Africa, East Africa, South Africa, here to give you information. So let's talk about the contracts, because now let's follow our narrative. We've seen the size of America. We talked about AGOA. We've talked about a lot already in this webinar. We know where to find buyers. We know how to be export ready now. Let's talk about the sales contract. The sales contract primarily fall into two categories. Either it's a one-time transaction or it's going to be an ongoing transaction. Ideally, in a one-time transaction, it'll be talking about the price, the quantity, those things like they'll be set in stone. But we have an ongoing relationship. You have a buyer that's going to be buying from you multiple times throughout the years, which is what we want. We want a person to keep coming back to us. They may do what they call an umbrella contract, a master contract. And they may not discuss the price in there. That can have some benefits with it. If you're doing a supply agreement, if you're selling to distributors, or if you have some sales agents in America working on your behalf. So like this is an example. These are just clauses in the contract. So if it's a one-time transaction, a clause may be just as simple as it could be simple as this. It could be the company, your company agrees to sell whatever your product is to the buyer. So if you're selling shea butter, if you're selling whatever you're selling, if you're selling steel, if you're selling cocoa paste, if you're selling tea leaves, coffee, if you're selling whatever you're selling to whatever you're selling, you put that here to the buyer. As valuable consideration for this product, the buyer shall pay your company a fee in the amount equal to X amount. That could be a simple clause in your contract, as simple as that. But if you're doing an ongoing relationship and the buyer may want to do what they call a master contract or a sales contract, umbrella contract, it can be something like this. The price of each product will be the total cost plus a markup of a percentage of that product. So what does that mean? This means that you're telling the buyer, we're going to make our products based on our price of our product based on however it costs us to make it, plus a markup of a percentage. So if it costs us $10 to make it, we'll add our profit margin 10% on top of that, or whatever your percentage is you need to make a profit. That's what they're saying. So for the price of each product will be the total cost it costs us to make it, plus our markup profit, a percentage for that product. Second line is equally important. Prices are based on your suppliers' expected total costs, and will be updated each quarter consistent with past practices. This is an example. So idea is that you're saying this is how we're going to price our products, but we reserve the right to change our price every 3 months. We can update it each quarter consistent with past practices. So these are examples how you can structure your sales contract. So you don't be taken advantage of, because they give you a umbrella contract that lasts a long time, and a pandemic happens and things get more expensive. You want to have the opportunity to be able to raise your prices or lower it if you need to, because you want to focus, you focus on a percentage wise. So if things get cheaper, you can lower your price. That means whatever your business model is. And financing terms, this is also equally important. Letter of credit. These are some things that we talked about finding buyers in America. And one thing you can go through is a letter of credit where it can minimizes your risk. You can make the American buyer go through their bank, and you can go through your bank. And the idea is that the buyer bank guarantees payment. So if the buyer doesn't pay, the bank will pay you. The bank in America will pay you. There are many reputable banks in America, many banks with good reputations in America. There are many of them. And that bank will guarantee that you'll get paid. Also, you can get paid in advance. You can get paid in advance. We talked about if you set a store on Etsy, they'll pay you in advance. Many people in America order products from Etsy from all over the world. You can have an online store on Etsy and they'll pay you in advance. So that way you already paid before you even ship it. And you can put it in, they can pay the shipping costs and everything. So you can have an online store, or you have an online store, your own website. I mean, there are many things you can do. But it's also important to know that if you're making people pay in advance and your competitors are not making people pay in advance, you may not be competitive in that market. For example, you're exporting types of soap or something, and you're making the person pay you in advance, but they're comparable products that are making people pay what they call net payments, maybe a net 30, a net 60, or net 90. Basically, we'll pay you in 30 days, 60 days, or 90 days. You may not be competitive in that market. And I think net payments can be good if you have an existing relationship with that person, or if it's like a large company, if it's like a big retailer, like a Walmart or whoever it may be. They may make you pay, they'll pay you roughly 30 or 90 days. And we're going to talk about ways to minimize that, to ensure you get paid. And one way is through a letter of credit. You can combine some of these. A letter of credit, net payment, you can combine many of these things. Also, when you're exporting, risk of transfer. This is a lot of good information. This is the information that Africans need to understand about, to know. This is what needs to get out to entrepreneurs on the continent of Africa. The best practice is to maneuver AGOA as well as international trade as a whole. So we're going through a lot of information, but trust me, it's well worth it. This information has to get out. So one way is to free on board, where if you're an exporter, once you export the product, you're no longer responsible for it. The buyer is responsible for if if the product gets destroyed, you're not responsible. The buyer is responsible. So you can put free on board as in the sales contract. I'm sending this to you free on board. So your responsibility ends once it's actually being shipped. They also have the cost, insurance, and freight, the CIF. That's where you are responsible for everything up until the buyer receives the product. So you can choose which one you decide to go on, or if they have, it depends on who has the leverage in a lot of this. I mean, if it's a big retailer, they may have more power, and you may have to make some concessions in certain areas. Also, dispute resolution. If something happens and they want to sue you, or you want to sue them, what are some ways you can go about it? One way is through international arbitration. Oftentimes, you may feel that, okay, if I sue in America, American courts are pretty reliable and pretty welcoming to foreigners to sue in American court. Anyone can sue in America. Anyone can sue in America. But you may feel, okay, if it's an American company, they might get a little bit more ability to win because this is an American company. It's not necessarily true, but you may feel that way, and they may feel the same way. They may the American buyer may say, I don't want to sue in your home country because you may get what they call a hometown bias. This is what they say, that each party get a hometown bias in their particular country. So to minimize that, you can do international arbitration, where you can have independent people from whatever country you choose to dispute this issue. And this is a sample clause of arbitration clause you can put in your contract. So we've shown you heavy things to put into your contract, multiple contract clauses to put into your contract. And the binding ruling, let's talk about that. This also has a lot of legal significance. This is very, very important, particularly when you come to the fact that 35, as we mentioned earlier, 35% of the value of a good must originate in that African nation. I mean, I can't say this enough. This is the 35% is very generous. I mean, that's particularly when I showed you in another free trade agreement the United States has. This is a preferential treatment, but there's a free trade agreement America has with the U.S., Mexico, and Canada. When it comes to cars, 75% must originate within the region. 75%. That's a very high threshold. But with AGOA, only 35% has to originate in that African nation. So you can import products from all over. I mean, we talked about the fabric. We talked about the fabric and how you can get fabric from third countries. You don't even have to make the fabric in your own home country. You can import fabric from China, from India, wherever you're going to import it from. And this is a very generous trade legislation. And this is like I said, AGOA is the key trade legislation between the U.S. and Africa. And the U.S. is the largest economy in the world, and we have to take advantage of this. But there's 35%. There's also 600 and there's over 6,500 products that are eligible for duty-free access to AGOA. So the question is, how do you know what 35% is? That can be difficult. That can be very difficult to really come to terms with. What counts as 35%? What counts as 35%? Is one of my products I want to export, is that part of the 6,500 products? And one way you can do that, you can request a binding ruling. You can request this from the U.S. Customs. You write them a letter, and they will give you a clear determination. You write the U.S. Customs. You can do this or go to a lawyer, and you can say, I have a product. This is what I've done. I brought fabric in from China, from Thailand, or whatever, and we're going to sew it together. Does this count as the necessary 35% to be able to get duty-free access to America? Or I have a product, does this count as an AGOA product? And they will let you know, they'll give you a clear determination on whether it meets AGOA, was AGOA eligible before you even export the product to the US. Because you export a product to the US and it doesn't meet AGOA, you'll have to pay the duty fees on it, or whoever has to pay the duty fees on it. And that can ruin relationships you have with your buyers in America. Because now your products are more expensive. They trusted you, they relied on you to make certain that this was AGOA eligible, and it wasn't. And you probably lost that buyer forever. So before you even export something to the US, you can go through a binding ruling from the US, from the US Customs and Border Protection. And once they give you this binding ruling, they can't go back and revoke it retroactively. So this is very important. So once you send a letter to them asking, saying, does my product meet? Is my product eligible to come into the world's largest economy? Because this is very important. This is very important stuff, because if you take advantage of this, you can change their lives. You better create jobs in your country, in your city, in your village. You better create jobs on this and change their lives. Not only yourself, but everyone you know. So it's worth the idea of being, that's why I spend a lot of time on being export ready, because the potential is astronomical. And as I mentioned earlier, if you don't request a binding ruling, and the U.S. Customs and Border Protection sees the product and they say this is not AGOA eligible, they can make you pay duties and they make you potentially pay penalties. And they can also go back up to 5 years. So if you've been exporting products to America and then all of a sudden they look at it and say, okay, this doesn't meet AGOA, they can go back 5 years, all the transactions you made for the last 5 years, and start fining you for that. And this can, as I mentioned, this can destroy a relationship you have with an American buyer. That relationship will end. You have a bad reputation in America because now all of a sudden you aren't export ready, and word can get out. You can never be able to sell a product. I mean, it may not be that serious, but it can give you a bad reputation in the American market. So let's talk about some funding opportunities. I think it's funding opportunities. This is very important. America has funding opportunities for AGOA. This is how much America wants the relationship with Africa to continue, and they want to grow the relationship. AGOA is primarily one of the most generous trade preferences that exist, and now they have funding. The U.S. International Development Finance Corporation, they can give loans and guarantees ranging from $1 million up to $1 billion. Now, these are some of the larger loans they have, but they have this. These are for Africa. They also give you partial loan guarantees to help you go get a commercial loan. For example, they can say, okay, if this person has to pay back, they can tell the bank, we, the American government, will pay for that. We'll pay up to maybe half of the loan or whatever it is. These things exist. Also, credit insurance against non-payment. The Afri-SM Bank, you give you credit insurance to minimize your risk. If you have a buyer, you send your product because you might have to send a product. It's very common to send your product, to export your product, and you get paid later. We talk about a net payment, net 30, net 60, net 90, paid 60 days, 30 days, 90 days. It's very common. And one way you can minimize the risk of not getting of non-payment is to get credit insurance. Euler Hermes is another company. They provide credit insurance, credit risk management to American imports. Cooperative economics. Let's talk about if you're a very small business, you don't necessarily have any employees, or you may have one employee or whatever. Let's talk about cooperative economics. Because in America, if you start a business, it's very difficult to go to a bank and get a loan from a bank in America if you're a brand new business. So what people in America do, which is what many people in the rest of the world do, they get money from friends and family and things such as that. In Africa, what's beautiful about Africa, they already have a system in place. The susus, they call it different names in different places. A susu, they call it different names, but they that's when individuals, they'll put money into a pot, and each week that money goes to that person. Let's think about another way. Let's elevate it a little bit and do susus for businesses. It's 10 businesses in the susu, and every week, one person wins all the people to do work on their business. You can have a variety of diverse businesses. It can be a legal person, it can be accounting, it can be a builder, it can be website development. Every week, each person gets all of those 10 people to do the work on their business. We can do this. Africa can do this. And also, it's important to start business with partners. Business is a team sport. It's very difficult to be successful in business when you're just one person. It's very difficult. And the reason I say that is because if you're one person, you have to do everything. You have to do everything. That can get exhausting. And then when you're doing so much, you may take some shortcuts. You're more susceptible to shortcuts, and you may have to not do things as well, and that can mess up your business reputation. So have partners who can contribute money to the business, and also commercial loans. There's a commercial loan. There are banks in Africa that you can go to. The Afri-SM Bank, they do loans in many places. There are many places out here to raise funding. These are 4 opportunities right here to raise funding. Because money is important. If you get an order, how do you make the order? How do you create the order? How do you pay your workers while you're waiting to get paid? And we're coming to a close. And let's talk about some of African growth opportunity related programs. I mentioned earlier the regional trade hubs. You don't necessarily have to write this down. I'm gonna email all these slides out to you, and then we'll have the video up as well. West African Trade Hub. 1 million East Africa Investment Trade Hub, Southern Africa Trade Investment Hub. These are resources for you that are through the African Growth Opportunity Act. Also, you have African Women's Entrepreneurs Programs. This is very important, very, very important. There's an enormous push around the world for women entrepreneurs. And there's a program in America for African women's entrepreneurs, A.G.O.A. Learn as much as you can about this program, because they do many things. One of the things they do the exchange programs, where they allow African women entrepreneurs to come to America to learn the best practices for business in American companies. Also, YALI, the Young African Leaders Initiative. These are programs for, if you have some young people, they can apply to these programs. This is very important. This is very, very important, because these things are competitive to get into, but it's very possible. And they get the best of the best training, business development, leadership and training, many things such as that. These are American programs that are AGOA related. So let's make sure we understand the whole entire step. This comes from the USAID. Let's make sure we understand the whole entire AGOA step. You are preparing your shipment. You get your commercial invoice. You obtain your certificate of origin. It can be, I showed you a textile one earlier. You get your AGOA stamp, your AGOA visa. I showed you the AGOA visa earlier. You be ready to clear customs. You get your export logistics. We talked about a freight forwarder. We talked about things such as that. And then you be able to clear through customs. We talked about how you can have a binding ruling to help you clear through customs. It means to have a customs broker to help you get through customs, get your products into America. These are all the steps right here. I'll send this out to you. So if you're a smaller business, what are some of the things you can do? We mentioned some of this throughout. One, you can do cooperative economics. We talked about a suit for businesses. We talked about the importance of finding partners, but it's also important to start regional. Maybe it might be too expensive to export to America. I understand sometimes a lot of African nations are landlocked, not necessarily they don't necessarily have seaports. So it may be best to start regional and then expand into America, because it can be very expensive. And the benefit of that, the beauty of that, is that this is very timely, because the African Continental Free Trade Act was just passed, was just launched. So now it's easier than ever to trade within Africa. So you can start regional, West Africa, East Africa, start Southern Africa, Central Africa, and then you can expand to the US. And also, as I mentioned, you have online stores. This is the age of the internet, 21st century. If we're in business, let's see, can we try to do business the right way? Online store. People expect you to have, American buyers expect to have a website. You can have your store there. You can go to Etsy. You can have your own website, online store. We really talked about, earlier we talked about all the methods for digital marketing, how to attract buyers in America. We really discussed it through and through. And as I mentioned, this is possible because there are people in African nations already doing this. These are people you can potentially partner with. I talked about having a partnership. Maybe you can sell a small item to this factory, to some of these factories in Senegal, Sierra Leone, Uganda, the Gambia, Rwanda, many places such as that. You can partner with them. You can also get them to join your company, serving your board of advisors. We're going to talk about that now. So this is small businesses. If you're starting out, when you're starting a business, these are the best practices for business development. In a business, let's see, can we run businesses the right way? Let's see, can we do that? First, we have to create a business. Get a logo, trademark the logo, copyright your website, your videos, and things such as that. You want to have a CEO. You may serve as a CEO. You also want to have a financial person. Who is your finance person? If you ever get audited or something, or you want to audit yourself, how do you know you're not losing money or someone's not stealing money from you? You also want to have a legal person to handle many of these legal challenges that you may have. I can serve in this role. And then you also want to have your board of advisors, people that have done what you're trying to do. I mentioned earlier, these are all the people, all the facilities registered with the US FDA. These 13 countries, all these countries represented on this call. These are people you can have on your board of advisors. These people are already exporting to the US. They've done what you're trying to do. So you can find out who these people are and get them to join your board of advisors. If you don't have any money to pay them, you can give them maybe 1 or 2% of your company, a percentage of your company. These people they know they have the know-how. They can mentor you to help you export properly, to make you export ready to the US. They have resources, they have knowledge of buyers, they have contacts to help you get financing. They have many things that you can do. Business is a team sport. And if you're new or you're growing business, these are some of the things you need to have in place. This is a form, I'll send this form out to everyone. And we're coming to a close, but the future of AGOA is very uncertain. And as I mentioned, because it's not been taken advantage of. African entrepreneurs are not using AGOA in a way that it needs to be. Now, some of it is capacity. You know, I understand, you know, it's difficult to trade with the United States. I understand that, you know, I understand the infrastructure may not be the best to facilitate, the logistics may not be may not be optimized. So a lot of this is not the fault of African entrepreneurs, not all of it, but it's very uncertain because it expires in 2025 and the US government may not renew it. And if they do not renew it, this will have a devastating effect on many economies in Africa. We have no idea. I know the United States has stated in the past they want to start doing free trade agreements with African nations, each African nation, because right now, AGOA only works one way. It only works from Africa to America. American entrepreneurs can't send things to Africa duty free. It doesn't go from the US to Africa. It goes from Africa to the US. So America wants to be where it can benefit both. And they want to do it either with a country or with a region. In the process, if you watch the news lately, under the Trump administration, the US and Kenya, they started initial talks with the bilateral trade to create a free trade agreement between the US and Kenya. And that may serve as the example, the model to negotiate free trade agreements with other countries in Africa. But that's very, very important because if there's a free trade agreement with Kenya, you're going to see a lot of American businesses in Kenya. You're going to see a lot of those. And we don't necessarily know the certainty of AGOA, but it's one thing I want to do this webinar because it's 2021. Because America may be saying that we created this in 2000. It's 2021 now, 21 years, and it's still not being utilized in a way that it needs to be utilized. They may be saying, why should we extend it again? We can give this trade preference to another region, another group of developing nations. So I want you all to get the word out and tell an individual about AGOA. I've shown you, let's see what we got. I've shown you that there's Africans already doing this. This is with the FDA. Everything doesn't have to go through the US FDA, but people in Africa are already doing this. They're already doing this. And you can too. So we'll do a raffle really quick. One thing I pride myself on is bringing as much value as I possibly can. Because this, oftentimes you'll see individuals that go to these conferences and learn about AGOA, but the information isn't necessarily going to the people. You all are the people. We have 13 countries represented on this call. I'm currently in Ghana right now. So if any individual that's in Ghana right now is wanting to meet, feel free to send me an email at gj@globallaw.tv. So this is our Q&A session.
One from Aisha, she said, Aisha said, please, how do I get the FDA certification and can you help with it?
Sure. That's a very important question. I can't help with that. It can be a sophisticated process, but one way you have to register with the FDA, the US FDA. And that can be done with paperwork. That can be done if you have a facility, they may have to inspect the facility and things such as that. But that's one of the many many things that we need to get registered. But I can definitely certainly help with the FDA registration. And it's a process that may require an inspection from your country.
All right. And another question is, how can I export palm kernel oil to the US? Please help.
Well, we mentioned many of these things. That can be a great export industry. We mentioned many of the paths to do that. One, it would definitely be through AGOA. We have to ensure that one is AGOA eligible, and one, we have to find some buyers for that. And I mentioned certain places that you can find buyers. It can be trade shows. It can be through digital marketing. It can be through having it through Alibaba. You can create your own website and you can find buyers to that perspective. So that's one way you can go through it as well. But you also want to make sure you have a company, because if they ask you, they want to buy They want to buy tons of your kernel oil. Can we actually meet that? And can we maintain the quality? You may have to get some certain certificates, some sanitary certificates to ensure that it's quality and grade A and it's not necessarily being tampered with. Those are some of the many things we can do to export it to the US. There's a market for that. It's also important to know that there's many Africans that are living in America, people that were born in Africa, they're currently living in America, many of those, and they eat many of the same products that they grew up with when they were living in Africa. So that's a market you can target as well to potentially sell your items to as well.
Very nice. Another question, please. How do we find out which companies of those listed countries have facilities registered with FDA?
You can go on the FDA website. I can definitely email that out. I didn't put the link there, but you can email that out. I'm certain there's every country in Africa that's AGOA eligible has facilities that are registered with the FDA. I mentioned it. I don't think the FDA lists the actual companies. They just show the number of companies. So you may have to start doing some research on your own. Figuring out who exports to the US. You may know someone that knows someone. So that's important to begin to talk to them and start learning things today. I just wanted to show you that these people are already doing it in your respective country. So people are already exporting to the US. So if they can do it, why can't you do it? Why can't you and a couple of your friends get together and do it?
All righty. Another question is, please share a standard sales contract template.
Okay, I could try to do that. In here, I put, where are we at? I can go to it. We're gotta go a long way. I put a sales contract. I put a sample invoice in here. This is a sample commercial invoice. This can serve as a contractual aspect from it. But if you want a little bit more, something more sophisticated that can protect yourself, then you may want to get a sales contract. I can help you with that. But it would be difficult to create a sample sales contract because we don't necessarily know the ins and outs of what a person may want. But this sample commercial invoice can serve as a sample for it. Okay, so I guess to wrap it up, we discussed a lot in this webinar, an absolute amount, a lot in this webinar. We talked about AGOA and the opportunity that it presents. And I hope you all have learned something from this. And I hope you all are willing to take this information and start your businesses and grow your businesses. I understand we have a lot of people on here that have businesses that actually have businesses and have many employees. And it's important to be, as we mentioned, we talked about, are you export ready? I have an export checklist in here. We talked about different certifications you may have. We talked about funding opportunities. We talked about many things that individuals need to have and need to know in order to ensure they are export ready. And I hope you all have found some value from this. My name is Jeremy Johnson. My name is Jeremy Johnson, Esquire, and wrapping up time. And okay, I see it's one person. He has a question. This is the last question we have. Go ahead, sir. Okay, I guess he.
Everybody.
Hello?
Hi, everybody. Yes, this is Enoch Salapian from Tanzania, and I would like to know something about AGOA. And my question is, how would you like to know if AGOA, if we can find AGOA offices in every African country? Like, I'm from Tanzania, I don't know where AGOA offices are located. Do we have AGOA offices in our countries, like in African countries, like in every country?
That's a great question. They are not in every country. They typically focus on a region.
Okay.
Let me look up exactly where the East Africa. There's one in East Africa, I believe. Let me see.
Yes.
It's. I want to say. It's maybe in Kenya. I want to say. Don't quote me on that, but it's somewhere. It's somewhere in your region that's not too far from you, and that's a good place to start.
Okay.
That's a good place to start.
Okay. So, can I continue?
Yes, you have another. This has to be the last question right here, sir. I want to make sure we respect everyone's time.
All right. So number 2 question, is it compulsory that you need to have a company or a registered company to be able to export your products to the USA, or you can export your product as an individual who runs businesses?
You can export it as an individual, but it's very, I would strongly advise you to have a company that's exporting. And why do I say that? Is because
Okay.
you want to minimize your legal risk, because if something goes bad, they'll sue you personally, and they can take everything out of your bank account. If something bad happens, there's a lawsuit happening. People sue a lot.
Okay.
But if you have a company, they can only sue your company. They can't touch your own personal belongings. So it's very important that you have a company.
Okay.
And
Thank you so much. I think you have responded to my questions. Thank you.
okay. Okay, so I think we're running out of time. I want to respect everyone's time, and we've discussed a lot in this. If you have any more questions, feel free to send it to info@globallaw.tv, and or send that to gj@globallaw.tv. And we've discussed a lot in this video, and I hope you all have found some value in this. And I'm a resource for you all, and we can continue to get this information out so Africans can change the lives of Africans, because this is an incredible opportunity. And we not only discuss AGOA, we also discuss some of the best practices for international trade. And I'm confident that you all can take advantage of this and be able to grow and to be able to change Africa. And if Africa reaches potential, the whole world is changed, and the whole world is changed for the better. So thank you all for coming, and I hope you all have a good day. Thank you.